Imagine going to a campaign website to, learn about a local candidate, and the URL itself literally tells you, vote for me or don't.
Right, like right up front.
Exactly. No donation buttons. There are no pleas for your unwavering support. It's just a 30-year resident of the city essentially daring you to steal his entire platform.
Just wild.
It is. So today we're doing a deep dive into a municipal campaign that looks at the traditional, highly sanitized political playbook, tosses it into a wood chipper, and attempts to run a civic election like an open source software project.
Which is, I mean, the absolute definition of a political disruptor, right?
Yeah.
It forces us to ask what happens when a candidate stops engineering their personality to,
Yeah.
offend the least amount of people possible and instead just leans entirely into raw, unfiltered provocation.
Yeah, and we are dissecting a massive stack of sources today, tailored specifically for you listening. We have poured over 29 YouTube videos and the full website manifesto from a man named JC Rathwell, who is running in the 2026 municipal election in Kelowna, British Columbia.
Quite the stack.
Oh, it's huge. And our goal for this deep dive is to decode the mechanics of this highly unorthodox, self-described shock and awe civic strategy.
But before we go any further into the actual mechanics of this platform, we really need to establish the analytical boundaries for this deep dive.
Yes, that is a critical point.
Right.
Because the sources we're analyzing today contain incredibly politically charged rhetoric. This candidate deliberately touches on highly sensitive, volatile flashpoints that, span both left-wing and right-wing ideologies.
Totally.
So I want to make it unequivocally clear to you that neither of us here is taking a side. We are not endorsing these viewpoints, and we are not condemning them either. Our job is strictly to impartially report on the content provided and break down the underlying logic, like the causality of the ideas presented in the original source material.
We are just examining the engine of this campaign.
Exactly. We are not telling you who to vote for.
Right. We're focusing purely on the how and the why.
Yeah.
And setting the stage here, it is exceptionally rare to see a candidate openly invite their opponents to steal their platform.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, by telling other candidates to just take his ideas and use them, he is signaling that he cares more about executing a specific vision for the city than he cares about, actually securing the mayor's chair for himself.
Okay, let's unpack this, because it's like he's treating a political campaign like open source software. He's putting the code out there for anyone to use, exposing all the bugs up front, and caring more about the software running properly than getting the credit for writing it.
That's a great way to put it.
Right, because his campaign is 100% self-funded. He takes no public money, no corporate sponsors, and zero political donors.
Wow.
He refuses to even put up those traditional smiling roadside signs. Everything just lives on social media on his own dime, and he employs a strategy of radical transparency to shield himself. He actually has a section of his platform dedicated to, quote, the good, the bad, the ugly, where he preemptively airs his own dirty laundry.
And what's fascinating here is that psychological framing. It's a brilliant defensive tactic.
How so?
Well, in standard campaigns, opposition research is the ultimate weapon, right? Opponents dig up a past failure, leak it to the press, and the candidate is immediately forced onto the defensive.
Right, they have to do damage control.
Exactly. But Rathwell short-circuits that entire cycle. By openly discussing his past failed business partnerships, he completely removes the shock value.
Oh, and it gets better. He brings up a defamation lawsuit he actually won regarding a real estate deal in Roten, Honduras from a decade ago.
Wow.
Yeah, and he even broadcasts his ongoing feud with the local news outlet in Kelowna, Castanet, whom he has successfully sued in the past.
See, by acknowledging his own flaws and attacking the local media gatekeepers right up front, he effectively neutralizes traditional journalistic leverage.
Right.
If a news outlet tries to run an expose on a failed business deal from 10 years ago, the impact is zero. He can simply point to his website and say, yeah, I published that first.
Totally.
It strips the press of their power to break a scandal, allowing him to control his narrative entirely through his own social media channels.
It's so calculated. And because he rejects traditional political campaigning methods, it naturally follows that he completely rejects the concept of a traditional career politician.
Which leads to his main qualification.
Yes, his primary non-negotiable qualification for holding office, which he calls the payroll prerequisite. He believes that only small business owners should be allowed to sit on the city council.
And he draws a very strict boundary around what constitutes a business owner.
Bro, he is incredibly specific.
Yeah.
He states he does not mean someone running a lemonade stand or like an Amazon drop shipping company with no staff.
Right, a solo gig.
Exactly. It must be someone who has actual employees, someone who physically has to make payroll. He argues that unless you understand the crushing pressure of knowing that other families, their mortgages, their food security, rely directly on your daily decisions, you lack the psychological skin in the game required to govern a city.
That's intense.
He claims current councilors lack this lived experience, which is why Kelowna is drowning in bureaucratic red tape.
And, I mean, that narrative heavily resonates with anyone who feels suffocated by municipal administration. He is dividing the world into two camps, the people who build things and take risks, and the people who regulate those builders while drawing a safe government paycheck.
But, okay, here is my issue with the payroll prerequisite. I have to push back a little to stimulate some critical thinking here.
That's right.
A city isn't a profit-driven enterprise.
Right.
A city has to fund homeless shelters, public transit, elder care, departments that inherently lose money by design because they provide a social baseline.
Exactly. They aren't meant to make a profit.
Right. So if you put a pure capitalist in charge of a loss-leading social service, the natural business instinct is to cut it. So what does this all mean? He makes a great point about financial literacy, but is running a diverse city of varied citizens exactly the same as running a private corporation?
And that is a totally valid pushback. That is the ultimate vulnerability in the government as a business model. A corporation can just fire its lowest performing assets.
Yeah.
But a mayor cannot fire a sick or struggling citizen. However, Rathwell's argument isn't strictly about profit generation. It's really about consequence.
Consequence, okay.
Yeah, he is tapping into a deep systemic frustration directed at bureaucrats who never seem to suffer the fallout of their own bad policies.
Oh, I see.
Right, so if a city council makes a disastrous zoning decision that stifles development, the councilors still receive their salaries next Friday. But if a small business owner makes a disastrous decision, they lose their house. He wants decision makers who have a visceral relationship with risk and failure.
That makes sense. But demanding that only active business owners run the city creates a glaring logistical wall, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Because a small business owner who is terrified of missing payroll cannot simply abandon their shop to sit in Tuesday afternoon zoning meetings for 60 grand a year. The people he wants running the city are the exact people who cannot afford to leave their jobs to do it.
Exactly. And Rathwell recognizes that exact hurdle, which is why his entire platform hinges on a violent restructuring of the municipal budget to solve that logistical wall.
Right. He proposes following the money. In his videos, he points out a massive pay discrepancy at City Hall. So the Kelowna city manager makes over $380,000 a year.
Wow.
Yeah. While the elected city councilors make less than $60,000 a year. So his solution isn't just trimming the fat. He's proposing an inverted corporate takeover. He wants to slash the city manager's salary from $380,000 all the way down to $100,000.
I mean, he basically wants to gut the C-suite to fund the board of directors.
Yes. Because he takes that remaining $280,000 and divides it among the city councilors, raising their pay to $100,000 each.
Which changes the math completely.
Right. At that salary, he argues, it finally becomes financially viable for a real entrepreneur to step away from their daily operations and actually serve the public.
It is a textbook populist mechanism.
Yeah.
By framing the city as an inefficient, top-heavy corporation, he paints the unelected middle managers as hoarding the wealth. The actual elected representatives, the councilors, are underpaid, and therefore they attract the wrong kind of candidate.
Right.
So by transferring the salary mass from the bureaucracy to the elected officials, he aims to shift the balance of power back to the voters' representatives.
And his war on municipal bureaucracy goes far beyond just salary restructuring. He is fiercely against what he terms red tape and expensive development cost charges, or DCCs, which he claims are completely crushing builders and artificially inflating the cost of housing.
To understand why this is such a potent talking point, we really have to look at how a DCC actually functions.
Okay, break that down for us.
So, when a developer builds a new subdivision, the city suddenly has to provide more water, more sewer capacity, wider roads, to accommodate the new residents.
Right, the infrastructure.
Exactly. And instead of taxing the whole city for those upgrades, municipalities levy a development cost charge directly on the builder.
But the builder doesn't just swallow that cost, they pass it directly on to the home buyer, right?
Yeah,
Which adds tens of thousands of dollars to the final price of the house.
exactly.
Rathwell's argument is that these exorbitant fees suffocate the housing supply before a shovel even hits the dirt. And he makes this fight against municipal overreach highly personal. He shares a story about his own car rental business being targeted by the city of Kelowna.
Oh, the parking ticket story.
Yeah. He explains how he was ticketed simply for parking a rental car on the street with a "Rent Me" sign in the window, which ultimately led to the business shutting down entirely.
Now, from a standard municipal perspective, street parking is public infrastructure.
Yeah.
Using a public parking spot as a commercial showroom violates basic zoning and use case laws, which is why the city issues those tickets, right, to maintain public access.
Right, right.
But by utilizing this personal anecdote, Rathwell transforms an abstract debate about civic bureaucracy into a tangible David versus Goliath story. He frames the city government not as a neutral manager of public resources, but as an active adversary that punishes entrepreneurs for just trying to survive.
It's a very compelling narrative for his base.
Yeah.
And this ruthless, bottom-line approach bleeds directly into how he plans to tackle the city's most volatile social issues. And again, a quick reminder that we're analyzing the mechanics of these policies impartially.
Right.
So he blames much of the city's overall decline on what he broadly labels wokeness. He explicitly promises that during the, quote, next plandemic, using that exact phrasing, he will ensure businesses stay open, citing the 2020 shutdowns as the fault of weak, woke city employees.
And by doing that, he is leveraging a very specific lingering resentment from the pandemic era.
Yeah, totally.
For many small business owners, government-mandated closures were a deeply traumatic financial event.
Oh, absolutely. They lost everything.
Right. So by framing those closures as an ideological failure rather than a public health mandate, he uses that lingering anger as a barometer for how current city management handles crises today.
And he applies that exact same blunt force to homelessness and crime. He states unequivocally that Kelowna does not have a homeless problem.
He says it's a drug problem.
Yes, a drug problem and a soft-on-crime problem. He claims that homelessness is merely the visible symptom of illegal drug use and a complete lack of municipal consequences. His solution completely bypasses building more shelters, which he claims only encourages people to sit around and do nothing.
Wow.
Instead, his policy relies on strictly enforcing bylaws mandating either involuntary treatment or jail time for repeat offenders. See, policies that aggressive are inherently polarizing. They alienate a massive portion of the electorate who view addiction through a public health or harm reduction lens.
Right.
Yet, simultaneously, they fiercely galvanize a specific subset of voters who feel that compassion-first policies have basically failed to keep public spaces safe. Here's where it gets really interesting. Rathwell knows his platform is controversial. He knows the term woke is a cultural lightning rod and that his stance on homelessness will draw intense criticism.
He has to know that.
He does. And because of this, he openly acknowledges a fascinating dynamic about his exact target demographic. He admits that local small business owners will likely never publicly support him. He says, quote, "I know how it works. You don't want to stand behind somebody that's controversial."
Which is very self-aware.
Totally. He understands that putting a J.C. Rathwell sign in a shop window might result in a boycott or cost them customers.
Because he is recognizing the heavy social tax applied to controversial political opinions in a hyper-connected community.
Exactly. So he introduces this concept of the private voter. He actively encourages his base to stay entirely silent in public, but to vote for him in the isolation of the voting booth. He tells them, vote private, vote awake. I want you listening to really think about how political polarization has driven local community-level support completely underground.
Strategically, this is identical to what political scientists refer to as the Bradley effect, or modern shy voter polling errors.
Oh, tell me about that.
So the Bradley effect originated in the early 1980s when Tom Bradley, a black candidate running for governor of California, was polling incredibly high but then lost the election.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Analysts concluded that voters were actually hiding their true intentions from pollsters due to social desirability bias. They didn't want to appear racist to a stranger on the phone, but then they voted differently in private.
So Rathwell is actively weaponizing social desirability bias.
Precisely. In today's environment where a political stance can instantly lead to a social media backlash against your livelihood, he is formally removing the social risk of supporting him. Right.
He is granting his core demographic explicit permission to agree with him silently, banking on the mathematical calculation that the silent majority of frustrated business owners heavily outweighs the vocal minority of his critics.
It's fascinating, but just as you box him in as a slash-and-burn disruptor who wants to jail repeat offenders and gut the C-suite of City Hall, you look at his next video, and the sources reveal a highly collaborative, surprisingly community-focused side of him.
The Old Mill Waterfront Project.
Yes, he's a passionate member of the Old Mill Waterfront Revitalization Committee. We have a video of him standing in front of an old wooden shed, fiercely advocating to turn it into the Granville Island Public Market of Kelowna.
And just for context, Granville Island in Vancouver is one of the most famous, vibrant, artisan public markets in the country.
Exactly. And he outlines this beautiful vision for 15 local restaurants, artisan vendors selling fruits and vegetables, live music, and affordable spaces for weekend creators. He wants to do all of this without charging the vendors ridiculous city fees.
He speaks passionately about preserving the history of the site while building a welcoming gathering place for future generations. The whiplash here is staggering. The same candidate threatening to fire bureaucrats is enthusiastically trying to build a vibrant farmers market.
Well, that contrast serves as a crucial reminder for anyone analyzing municipal campaigns.
Yeah.
National politics often force candidates into rigid, predictable ideological boxes,
Bill?
But local politics is inherently tied to the physical space you share with your neighbors.
That's very true.
Human beings and local politicians are rarely one-dimensional caricatures. Even the most aggressive, bottom-line, business-first minds often harbor a fierce, localized civic pride.
So for Rathwell, protecting a local artisan from exorbitant city fees at a farmer's market is the exact same philosophy as protecting a car rental business from a parking ticket.
Exactly. The tone shifts dramatically from combative to collaborative, but the underlying ideology getting municipal government out of the way of the people trying to build things remains entirely consistent.
Bringing this all together for you listening, we've just unpacked an incredibly complex municipal campaign. We have a candidate running a self-funded, open-source, anti-woke campaign.
Yep.
A man who wants to replace career politicians with payroll-paying entrepreneurs, execute an inverted corporate takeover of the city's budget to fund it, and relies heavily on the underground support of the shy private voter, all while trying to build a waterfront artisan market.
It's quite the mix. Whether you happen to live in Kelowna, British Columbia, or you're listening to this halfway across the world, this deep dive is a masterclass in how local politics are rapidly transforming.
Oh, completely.
It really shows what happens when candidates abandon the polished, risk-averse script and start speaking the raw, unfiltered language of a frustrated demographic.
It really makes you look at a political yard sign that says vote for me or don't in a completely different light.
It does. And it leaves us with a final, lingering question to ponder. We started by noting that Rathwell openly invites his opponents to steal his ideas.
Sure.
If a candidate's ultimate goal is simply to force their controversial open-source ideas into the mainstream public conversation, how do we actually measure the true impact of a campaign? Is it possible for a politician to completely lose the election at the ballot box, but still entirely win the war of ideas?